the rugged shores and woodlands of the north, it's history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fishery. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around, my friend, and all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. And sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you all the beauty in the state of Michigan.
Hi there, come on in. It is Thursday night, April 22nd, 2004. Well, this has been sort of a blockbuster week for outdoor news in Michigan, starting with the announcement of a new DNR director who will take over the $250 million agency on June 1st. This is also the week when the State House is expected to approve the Senate's revision on the dove hunting bill and send it to the governor, who says she'll veto it. How happy will the new DNR director be with the governor if that happens? Well, this and a lot more news and information coming up. I'm Zachary Trost with this edition of The Practical Sportsman.
There's an advantage to being my age, and that is that you get to see how things don't really change over the years, that history repeats itself, sometimes over and over. 19 years ago, Michigan was in the throes of arguing whether doves ought to be legal game in Michigan, and the controversy was as hot then as it is now. Now, the interesting thing is that this past year, when the dove proposal has been a big public issue, our neighboring state to the west, Wisconsin, was going through the same fuss. And now Wisconsin, of course, has a dove season now. 19 years ago, when Michigan was arguing about dove hunting, I guess in what we'd call round one, or the controversy of 1985, our neighboring state to the south, which was Indiana, had just established their first dove season. And they had all the negative publicity and arguing then that we have now. In fact, all the arguments that I've read in the newspapers over the past year and all the complaints to the letters to the editor were brought up 20 years ago in Indiana. The Hoosier season began in 1985, and we took our cameras down to Mongo, Indiana for opening day of their dove season. The instigator of that trip was Tom Opry, who was the outdoor editor of the Detroit Free Press at the time, and he arranged the hunt with Indiana DNR officials who were on the hot seat about their new season. And because dove hunting is a huge issue once again, it's really appropriate to look at the story that I put together in 1985. You know, I really couldn't say anything different in 2004 than I did then, because it's history repeating itself one more time.
Tell me about dove hunting in Indiana. We thought we were going to have a season, and then we figured we weren't, and it's in the courts back and forth. You had a similar problem to this in Indiana last year, didn't you?
Yes, the citizens of Indiana that enjoyed hunting really got behind it in this one particular instance, and so many letters were written, so many phone calls were received by the legislators that it swung the dove season around in our favor, and we were able to get one.
Still have a little last-minute shooting here for the doves. Well, that was a year ago, your first dove season in Indiana. From what you know about our Michigan experience with the Humane Society and so on, does it seem like you had about the same problems we did?
Yes, it seems just about exactly the same problems, but I think the sportsmen in Indiana, in this one instance at least, overwhelmed everything else, and were able to get their season through.
Now, this is your second year.
This is our second year of dove hunting.
What has happened as far as the adverse public opinion in the second year?
I haven't heard of any adverse publicity at all. There probably are some people that have written letters, but to my knowledge, none of them have come to light here.
Does that surprise you?
It did, especially right after our first year. But now that we've had a year and the intervening non-season in between, and then no backlash for this season, I'd say things are going very well for the hunter.
Why wasn't there a backlash down here this season? How do you read that?
I don't understand. It just must be that it wasn't the overwhelming atrocity that some people thought it might be. Perhaps the word got through that it is a a viable species, that there is an excess that can be hunted, and maybe they're not going to begrudge the hunter his due.
But dove hunting in the South is very much a if I can use the word, genteel sport. Lots of guys that have been hunting doves for years together. They get together, they meet at a farm. They pay farmers money to crop fields certain ways, so they'll track doves. They have a nice leisurely shoot. They go back to the farmhouse. They have a big barbecue before they go home. It's a very, very social event. Lots of times their wives will come out and meet them for the barbecue afterwards. Down in Tennessee, where I go every year to hunt doves, this is a big social event of the season.
I don't know what the population estimate is for Michigan, but we would expect the effect on the population of doves in Michigan to be the same as it is on doves in any other state, and that's none. When the Fish and Wildlife Service conducted a study of dove and dove hunting and non-dove hunting states from 1975 to 1980, they found that the breeding effort, number of breeding birds, number of birds in hunted and unhunted states to be virtually identical.
Was it in Indiana more of an emotional reaction against hunting doves than a biological reaction?
Definitely. We have quite a few people that live in the cities, and they go by what they've seen at their bird feeder and what they've seen on television, and not necessarily how things actually are on the land. Many of our people are quite removed from the land, and they may not understand the exact biological nature of things.
What is the biological nature that they don't understand?
Probably that there is an excess of doves, that many of them are going to pass away, if you will, whether they're hunted or not, and there are some people who enjoy hunting and should be allowed to hunt, and it won't harm the species at all.
What happens to doves? What happened to the doves in this state when they were not hunted?
Most of them probably went down, well, most of them died naturally, let's say up to 80% a year from hawks, owls, winter, ice, cold. Those that didn't probably moved south more and more as the temperature got worse, and ended up just overwintering in the south, and then came back here in the spring.
Okay, you say 80% mortality of doves. It's estimated to be 70, 80%. If hunters take 10%, wouldn't that mean added to the 70 or 80% that there would only be 10% left?
No, there was one lady that told me that 80% are going to die naturally, and hunters want to kill the other 20%, but that's not the way it is. The hunters' portion comes off the top almost. It's like the cream off the top, and only those that die of natural causes after the hunting just bring it down to the natural 30 or 20% that are going to overwinter anyhow and come back in the spring.
So the hunter's take is a part of the 70%.
Yes, it doesn't eat into the to the 20 or 30% that are going to overwinter and come back.
Are the doves that frequent people's bird feeders around the suburbs the same doves that are flying out here in the field?
Banding practices have shown that that's probably not the case, that if a dove flies 2-5 miles maybe for his to his feeding area, and we don't, for instance, get any birds here from Fort Wayne or LaGrange or even Mongo for that matter. They're all birds from right around this area that are coming here.
So backyard birds tend to be backyard birds.
That's true.
Wild birds of the field tend to stay wild.
That's true. People who grew up in the city like the city. People who grew up in the country generally like the country.
Same with birds.
Yes, sir.
As far as I'm concerned, from a hunting point of view, it's another animal. They certainly are beautiful animals, but I don't feel that hunting the doves will interfere with other people's enjoyment of doves. I've lived in 2 other states, Maryland and Virginia specifically, hunted doves in both states, and they still came to the bird feeders there, and they still behaved the same way as they do here in Michigan. And in a very short while, I'll be taking a little bit of a vacation in Maryland, and the doves still come to my mother's feeder right through dove season. So from that point of view, I can't understand those objections.
Did you get any complaints that people had less doves at their bird feeders this past winter?
Some of the staunch non-hunters in this area actually thought that there were more doves around, and they said that they understood that it did not harm the season.
That's about as good as an endorsement as you can get for the biological
Yes.
reasons for hunting.
And these people that I know would go out of their way to tell me if they thought it had hurt the season or hurt the dove population, and they just admitted that it did not.
Okay, Steve, you were born and raised in Michigan.
Yes,
Came down here to work for the Department of Natural Resources.
yes.
So you know the attitudes and the sentiments in Michigan. You've heard about them. You can probably understand them or not.
Well, I guess most of the people that I'm acquainted with are hunters and fishermen, and I think their sentiments towards dove hunting would be pretty well appreciated if they could get exposed to it. I think everybody looks at the mourning dove at first as a bird of peace, but I think if they ever come and had a hunting opportunity like this, they'd probably change their mind because they are quite a sporting bird.
There are a lot of birds, though, that would be sporting. Blackbirds, starlings. You know, they're open.
Yes.
People don't shoot them. Too
Well,
small to eat?
No, I don't think they're probably as good eating as the mourning dove, and I think it's probably tradition that you really don't eat a blackbird or a crow or a starling unless you're really starved, but the mourning dove is a very excellent eating bird and eats mostly grain and that type of stuff.
Do you find that most hunters who hunt for them eat the doves?
Yes, I do. Almost everybody last year, anyways, when we got started, were wondering about certain recipes and how to fix them and how to that. They weren't really sure how to do it, but everybody I know fixed them and ate them because they're very delicious to eat.
A real treat on the table, abundant in the fields, and the most challenging game bird to wing shooters all over the country is the mourning dove. Hitting speeds of 60 miles an hour, most of them will get away, living only a few months longer before Mother Nature deals with their bulging populations through other methods. Our hunting party averaged 9 doves apiece during the early season hunt in Indiana, and I think I had the least doves, but I had the most empty shells to show for my afternoon. But there is a good meal there, about 4 ounces apiece. The doves bone out to about 2 ounces of meat. When you're shopping for shotgun shells, you'll find the lighter loads are called dove and quail loads. That's a reminder that 35 states hunt doves. Out of an estimated 500 million birds in this country, hunters take about 50 million. But unless the court moves quickly, the dove season and the doves will remain up in the air in Michigan outdoors. This is where we were hunting, just south of the Michigan border. This is where a lot of Michigan doves will be moving throughout the next month or so and be taken by hunters all over the country to the south of us. We probably won't have dove season in Michigan this year. The courts, who knows, that's still touch and go. But there I was, 19 years ago, bringing you the story of a controversy in the outdoor world that is still not settled in Michigan, and bringing you the Guides Report. Now, history isn't really repeating itself here because my son Zachary now handles this, and here he is with an update from this past weekend. The man is sewing on what looks to be a turkey wing. It looks like there's maybe 2 of them there, and this is the weird thing here. This, obviously, you can tell from the feet, is the body of the turkey, but there's some things that are noticeably missing from this. I mean, as I walk around here, this is absolutely wild. It's just a, I don't know how much of it there is. There isn't a whole lot. What do we got going on here, Tim?
Well, I found over the years that it's easier to take and dismantle a turkey and then put it back together for various reasons. A turkey is a big bird. It can be overwhelming to try and work on it while everything's flopping around. So anymore, I take the feet off, the wings off, the tail off, the head off, the beard off, and then reassemble it in smaller stages. It makes it a little easier, actually.
Well, this is a hole there, obviously, for the wing.
Well, it looks pretty big, but actually, you know, it's because the skin's been pulling down on it. It'll all come back up. And,
Do you glue that in there?
I can pin it, I can glue it, I can sew it, depends on what floats my boat.
What now? That skin seems like feeling it.
Well, feeling
it's not
is one
dry and
thing.
hard. It's
Actually, turkey skin's one of my most favorite things to eat, but at this point, it's no longer edible. It's mountable. It's been tanned, and it's not really dry, but it's going to dry a little bit harder than this.
So you glue that on there or not?
Most of the time, you don't put a lot of glue in a bird. It may take, we want on a strutting bird, all these feathers to stand up. I may lay a layer of glue down on that just to help hold them in place, but normally no.
So the tail here.
The tail, what I do is I'll take and I'll lift it back up, and it's already got its slot, and it's already been preformed, and boom, there you go. Pretty easy.
Next week, Tim will continue with this mount. I'm telling you this just to give you a heads up.
That wraps up this week's show. Enjoy the spring weather and get outdoors. It's a great place to be. Fred and I will be right back here next week. See you then.